In African countries, it has become a potential, yet it finds itself in a state of poverty and underdevelopment, with its resources exploited by foreign powers. It is high time for Africans to liberate themselves from the chains of colonialism and neo-colonialism and forge a new Africa that is prosperous, united, and self-reliant. The audience, including Pan-African scholars, activists, and political leaders from various parts of the continent, responded to Malema's speech with enthusiastic applause. That's when he considered it essential to slam the Kenyan president, who took turns from his promises and became a West puppet. Malema said he was quite confused about President William Ruto's sincerity because his numerous statements have created chaos. Malema said that's why William Ruto does not come before Malema, because he knows Malema will question him and his grand promises that have not been kept. Malema argued that Ruto's commitments during the election appear markedly different from his current actions. The ambiguity arises from his rhetoric about moving away from the dollar and creating a Pan-African currency, which doesn't align with his actual initiatives. Notably, there's a contradiction in recent events, such as extending a warm welcome, complete with military honors, to an individual implicated in the killing of Kenyan citizens. Well, he was referring to King Charles's visit to Kenya. Even if the Kenyans demanded reparations and an apology from King Charles, he came to Kenya and went without an apology. Despite this, the Kenyan president treated King Charles warmly, hinting that he was a loyal West's puppet in Kenya. Malema said that it's crucial to emphasize that the Kenyan army has its roots in the Mau Rebellion and is not a colonial force, making the reception of someone tied to those past deaths a significant contradiction that needs addressing. He further argued that Africans were responsible for upholding their principles and reminding both the king and Britain of their historical actions against them. Unfortunately, President Ruto acknowledges the wrongdoing without remorse or sincere apologies. Malema said that it appears that King Charles perceives his race as superior, exempting him from apologizing to those he considers inferior. Malema said that we Africans strongly encourage the Kenyan government to take a decisive stance, choosing between being Pan-Africanist or supporting neo-colonialism. Attempting to straddle both paths is impractical. A clear decision is necessary so Africans can know whether William Ruto and his government are working for the people of Africa or its colonial masters. Then, he talked about the spirit of Pan-Africanism. He said that championing Pan-Africanism is challenging due to our people's deeply ingrained colonial mindset. Those who stand for this cause may face isolation or be deemed unreasonable, but it's a cause worth pursuing, given the sacrifices of past generations. Malema argued that we reject the necessity for visas and instead champion a unified currency for Africa, with the potential to surpass the influence of the pound and the dollar combined. Despite possessing substantial gold reserves, London lacks a single gold mine. Africa's minerals run their economy. Malema said we can wield significant influence by safeguarding and leveraging African minerals to create an internationally competitive currency. To achieve this vision, Malema advocated for establishing an African central bank, an African monetary zone, and a unified African defense system. That's when he revealed something that stunned the audience. He said that the ongoing conflicts in Africa are not organic, but sponsored, intended to divert Africans' attention while others exploit their resources. Therefore, a unified African military command is essential to ensure the stability and security of the continent. Not only that, but the true spirit of Pan-Africanism will spread when Africa establishes a binding African court to address dictators whose primary focus is enriching their friends and families within the African continent. Malema said these individuals should be prosecuted within the African legal framework. He argued that the International Criminal Court has become a Western tool to punish nations that do not align with the West. Therefore, rather than combating crime, the ICC is oriented towards engaging in political conflicts. This is evident in their selective issuance of warrants, where figures like Putin are brought under the law, but other Western war criminals are exempted. Malema said that moving forward, it's essential to be vigilant against tribalism's rising influence in our leaders' actions. Leaders must take a firm stance against violence and war, particularly when driven by tribalism and unjustifiable territorial expansions. Malema argued that the absence of President William Ruto's stance on the Democratic Republic of Congo conflict is prominent, and leaders should condemn violence there as it directly impacts peace in Kenya. Then he talked about Kenya's planned removal of visas in December, which he called a positive step towards fostering unity in Africa. But he said he ought to make a surprise return to Kenya in December to check if President William Ruto stands by his claim that there won't be visas that month. He said that perhaps he could check that out by sneaking in without applying for any visa, just presenting his South African passport and proudly declaring that he was coming home. Showing that he supported Pan-Africanism and all efforts to promote it, Malema said that the newly launched Pan-African Institute will have the full support of the EFF, his political party. He said that his party's support won't just be words, it will contribute financially, covering staff salaries and operational expenses for the institute. That's when he approached William Ruto's silenced stance on the Palestine issue. Malema said that it should be informed to President Ruto that the people of Palestine are enduring hardship. He should know that the people of South Africa stand in solidarity with the Palestinians. Malema made a comparison, saying that today, we Africans confront displacement, killings, torture, and imprisonment on our own land. When we resist, they brand us as terrorists. Nelson Mandela, whom we celebrate, spent 27 years in prison fighting for the liberation of South Africa and oppressed people worldwide, including Palestinians. Malema argued that it's not right for President Ruto as he is silent when Gaza is being bombed. He clarified that our struggle isn't against Jewish individuals, pregnant women, or children. We're fighting against the Zionist apartheid state of Israel. If he received money from a Jewish person, we're not challenging him for that. Our fight is against the state of Israel. He then told about his traumatic experience in childhood when, at the age of 9, the police attacked his house. It disrupted everything and left his mother stripped. Malema said that when he witnesses the suffering of Palestinian children, he can instantly relate to the horrors of apartheid. Malema said that, to embrace Pan-Africanism truly, Africans must stand in solidarity with oppressed nations, not be silent like Williams Ruto to please his Western masters. He clarified that our Pan-African identity is grounded in recognizing that we, too, are an oppressed nation. He argued that wherever we encounter oppression, that individual becomes our sister, mother, and father. Our quest for freedom remains incomplete until the entire world is liberated from imperialism and colonialism. He candidly said he was committed to speaking his truth without hesitation, and the hosts might regret inviting him. But he will always speak the truth, no matter what. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. He continued and said he didn't arrive here by plane or boat. He was carried here by the spirits of those discarded in the oceans. Their cries persist today. They weren't merely discarded, they were chained and defenseless when sharks attacked. Even knowing they would likely die, they chose to face it fighting. Those who perished in the ocean urged Malema to go forth because what we are initiating will seek reparations for them. He was referring to the brutal transatlantic slave trade, saying that those who endured suffering on plantations and were treated as if they were animals should be remembered. Well, since he openly criticized William Ruto, threats of attack on Malema increased. However, he firmly said that he was not afraid of anyone. He affirmed that he will continue to speak the truth, no matter how bitter or harsh it is, and whether it threatens his life. He said that whether they came after him or not, he couldn't care less about those things. He simply said that when leaders like William Ruto are alone, they undoubtedly confess that he is speaking the truth, and that's what matters. That's when he further slammed Ruto. Malema said that President Ruto has a platform to talk without really addressing Palestine, Israel, or any significant issues. It's what they call diplomatic language. He asked whether the West wanted African presidents to be silent on pregnant women dying. Malema said that a Pan-Africanist can never sympathize with those who witness children being murdered or see occupiers killing the rightful owners of the land. Malema said that Palestinians can't offer him anything, and they can't buy his support, even if they try. They're in no position to give anything. They face a difficult situation. He once again told about his traumatic childhood experience when he was 9, and police raided his house. Male officers found only women as they were searching for young boys and men. They went as far as stripping Malema's mother naked in front of him to confirm her identity as a woman. Malema said that if someone has lived through that, he can grasp what the Palestinians are enduring. Forceful removal, something Malema experienced in South Africa, teaches the harsh reality. One day, you have a home, land, everything. The next day, it's all gone. That's precisely what's happening in Palestine right now. But President William Ruto is silent as if he does not know anything is happening in Gaza. Thousands of Palestinians have been killed, and not a single international warrant of arrest has been issued against those allowing the killings. He said that in the war between Ukraine and Russia, only 2,500 people died in Ukraine, yet in Palestine, over 20,000 are dead. There was a warrant against President Putin, who never bombed a hospital or a refugee camp. Even if the president of Hamas enters a refugee camp, you must halt and find another way to apprehend him. Once he enters a hospital, you have to stop. A pregnant woman, unaware of a Hamas president's presence, is killed for no reason. President Ruto declares support for Israel, and the younger members of his party fail to condemn it. Malema said that's why they discuss Africa's 2060 vision, although most won't be around in 2060, leaving uncertainty about their intentions. If Africans are part of the youth and seek to be taken seriously, it's vital to hold their elders accountable occasionally. This accountability is crucial for Africa to realize its potential. The elders have restrained the African continent with dictatorship and family arrangements, while the youth often remained silent. He clarified that South Africa's liberation is owed to the youth. That's when he talked about what Pan-Africa will look like. He said that to achieve a united Africa, following through on commitments like dollarizing and eliminating visas is essential. Youth should come and study in South Africa, and South Africans should come and learn in other African countries' universities. He said that Africa needs cultural exchanges, and we should begin listening to the same music and watching the same movies to eradicate the Western imperialism that manifests through songs, television, and movies. He asked to imagine if Africans weren't under such conditions. The world would come to Kenya not for its challenges, but for the greatness that would shine through. There are so many resources. 90% of the world's platinum is in Africa. He quoted what happened in Niger. The military took charge through a revolutionary coup, ousted the French puppets, and significantly raised the price of uranium because France was taking it at low amounts of money. Niger has now become one of the fastest-growing economies in Africa due to revolutionary actions. According to forecasts, Niger will be the world's fourth fastest-growing economy because the military junta has taken radical steps for the benefit of its own people. Malema said that the youth must inject skepticism into politics. It is the youth's responsibility to infuse radicalism into both the ruling party and the opposition, stating, "Anything that is not African, we won't associate with." He said that, at present, Africa is a continent where one French puppet replaces another. We shouldn't endorse such nonsense, as witnessed in Guinea, where a president is ousted, and it turns out there's another French puppet taking over without introducing anything revolutionary to transform Guinea. He further said that no African leader, including Williams Ruto, ever talked about the killings in Africa on their master's orders. No one speaks out because, as the barbarics, the monkeys, kill each other, there's indifference. The West wants to allow Africans to finish each other. Malema said that it's not acceptable that if a different race is killed, there's an outcry, but when Africans are killed, it doesn't matter. Malema said that no one addresses the deaths in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where thousands are being killed. No one speaks out because it's an African life, it's a cheap life. They don't care about it. Julius Malema is not alone in revealing William Ruto's betrayal of his own people, country, and continent. Veteran politician Raila Odinga, a five-time presidential candidate, said that President William Ruto is a tool of the West, working in the interest of foreign powers rather than Kenya. Raila made these assertions a day after Ruto's government announced its plans to import genetically modified maize to address the growing food scarcity in the country. He accused Ruto of lifting the ban on genetically modified organisms (GMOs) without public involvement, labeling it as a betrayal to Kenyans. Regarding the importation of GMO maize, the new government lifted a ban in early October that had been in place for over 10 years due to the ongoing drought causing food insecurity. This announcement coincided with a visit by Bill Gates to Kenya, who pledged an additional $7 billion to African countries to address food insecurity. Despite emerging concerns, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a major food security donor, actively supports African countries in cultivating genetically modified foods. In response to Raila's criticism, Ruto's government defended the decision to import GMO, with Raila accusing Ruto of being a puppet working against the nation's interest. Raila called on Kenyans to reject GMO foods, framing the importation of GMO maize as a new form of colonialism. Well, what William Ruto has been doing shows whether he is a West puppet or not. President Ruto appears to be shifting towards strengthening relations with Western countries, departing from his predecessors who closely collaborated with China on various development projects. In his first 100 days in power, Ruto held talks with several Western leaders and envoys, signaling a change in Kenya's international alliances. Political analyst Kevin Okol, based in Nairobi, suggests that Raila perceives Ruto's increased engagement with Western powers as provocative, leading his supporters to believe that the elections were influenced. William Ruto has significantly ramped up engagements with the United States, indicating a shift from east to west. Ruto, joined by his deputy Rigathi Gachagua and the country's foreign affairs minister, Alfred Mutua, has held meetings with top-level U.S. officials on more than 15 occasions. In contrast, there has been limited interaction with the Chinese, who were favored in bilateral relations during the last two administrations of President Mwai Kibaki and President Uhuru Kenyatta. During those periods, the Look East policy was linked to major infrastructure projects, such as the Thika Superhighway, the Standard Gauge Railway, and the Nairobi Expressway, primarily funded and constructed by the Chinese. Following his meeting with the Chinese delegation at his inauguration on September 12th, Ruto engaged with China Ambassador Zhou Pingjian only once, on October 18th. Ruto has been tilting toward the U.S. and the West in shaping his economic-centered foreign policy. This shift marks a departure from the previously favored Look East approach. That's when Julius Malema's statements about Ruto found evidence. What do you think? Did the Kenyan president use his people to get elected in return for nothing? Is he a Western puppet who does whatever they order? Let us know your thoughts on whom you think is right, Julius Malema or William Ruto. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about, the blah. The Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.